Everyone at St. Mercy Hospital knew that the first day of a new doctor could change the rhythm of the entire ward, but no one expected the stir that Robert would cause. It wasn't just his reputation that preceded him, whispered in corridors like a promise of excellence. It was the quiet confidence in his steps, the calm precision in his gestures, and the way his presence seemed to make the air a little warmer. Emily adjusted her nurse's cap nervously as she prepared the charts for the morning rounds. She had seen many doctors come and go, some brilliant, some arrogant, and some simply indifferent. But the moment Robert entered the ward, carrying a stack of patient files, there was something undeniably different. He greeted the staff with a gentle bow and a polite smile, and even in that brief motion, Emily felt a flicker of curiosity, and something else, a soft pull she didn't quite understand. Their first interaction was practical, professional. A patient's medication needed clarification, and Emily stepped forward. As she handed over the file, their fingers brushed, almost imperceptibly, but it sent a spark through her that she could not ignore. Robert's eyes met hers for a fraction longer than necessary, and a small, understanding smile tugged at the corner of his lips. He nodded, approvingly, as if silently acknowledging the effort she put into her work. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of procedures and introductions. Yet Emily found her mind drifting back to that brief moment. It was strange, she thought, how a simple meeting, just a file exchanged, a glance held, could stir something so quietly powerful. Something told her this was just the beginning of a connection that would change everything she thought she knew about love, work, and life itself. Emily never imagined that the next day would feel so different. The hospital buzzed as usual, machines humming, patients calling, nurses hustling, but today there was a subtle tension in the air, an undercurrent of anticipation that she couldn't quite place. And then she saw him, Robert, moving gracefully through the corridor, a clipboard in hand, checking charts with the kind of ease that only came from experience. "Emily, you'll be assisting me during rounds today," he said, his voice calm but confident, almost casual, yet carrying an authority that made her straighten instinctively. She swallowed, aware of the flutter in her chest, and nodded. "Of course, Dr. Kim," she replied, using his formal title for professionalism, though the thought of calling him Robert felt oddly tempting. As they walked from room to room, Emily noticed the little things about him that made him different from the other doctors she had worked with. He didn't just issue instructions, he explained, he listened, he encouraged. When a patient expressed fear of an upcoming procedure, Robert knelt slightly, meeting their eyes, offering reassurance that was simple but profoundly comforting. Emily found herself watching him more than the charts, captivated by his empathy and subtle humor, the way he made even the stressful moments feel lighter. By mid-afternoon, they had faced a small crisis, a patient with a sudden allergic reaction. Emily felt her heart pound as she assisted, but Robert's calm guidance steadied her hands. When the patient stabilized, he turned to her and said, "You handled that very well." She blinked, surprised at the warmth in his tone, and before she could respond, he gave her a brief, comforting hug, quick, professional, yet somehow intimate. As Emily returned to her station, she realized that their collaboration was more than a work assignment. It was the beginning of a connection neither of them could ignore, a quiet spark growing in the heart of St. Mercy Hospital. The hospital gala was always a spectacle, bright lights, sparkling decorations, and laughter echoing through the grand hall. But tonight, Emily felt a mix of excitement and nerves as she adjusted her dress in the reflection of the elevator. She wasn't used to attending these events outside her scrubs, yet somehow, tonight felt different. Robert would be there, and though their connection was still new, she couldn't deny the anticipation that had been building all week. When she entered the hall, the chatter of staff and patients' families created a warm hum around her. And then she saw him, Robert, standing near the center of the room talking to a colleague. He looked effortless, confident, and kind, the kind of presence that drew people without demanding attention. Their eyes met, and he gave her a small nod and a smile, like a private acknowledgement in the middle of the crowd. As the evening unfolded, Emily found herself moving through conversations, but her attention often returned to him. When a staff member asked her to assist with a speech, her stomach tightened with anxiety. Robert, noticing, appeared beside her quietly. "You'll do great," he said softly, his voice low enough for only her to hear. The encouragement carried a sincerity that made her nerves ease. And when her speech ended, clumsy but heartfelt, she felt his hand on her shoulder and a reassuring hug, grounding her in a way no words could. They spent the remainder of the gala talking, laughing softly, and sharing stories of their lives beyond the hospital walls. Robert about adjusting to a new country, Emily about her family and dreams in nursing. It was a night of gentle connection, of moments that didn't need words to matter. As the gala lights dimmed and people began to leave, Emily realized something she hadn't expected. In a room full of people, it was Robert who made her feel seen, understood, and strangely safe. Emily had stayed late at St. Mercy Hospital more times than she could count, but tonight felt different. The corridors were quieter, the hum of machines the only sound that accompanied her footsteps. She was finishing up patient charts when a sudden downpour began, rain tapping insistently against the large windows. She groaned softly, no umbrella, no cab, but before she could plan her escape, she noticed a familiar figure approaching. Robert. He was standing by the entrance, his coat slightly damp from the rain, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. "Late night again?" he asked, holding an umbrella in one hand. "Need a ride home?" Emily hesitated, the temptation of warmth and companionship overpowering her usual caution. "I'd appreciate that," she admitted. They stepped outside together, but the storm had picked up, forcing them under a small awning by the side of the hospital. Water dripped from the edges, forming tiny puddles at their feet. For a moment they stood in silence, watching the rain fall, the world around them softened by the downpour. Emily felt a strange calmness in Robert's presence, as if the chaos of the storm was nothing compared to the steady certainty he exuded. "You always work this late?" he asked gently, his eyes meeting hers. She shrugged, smiling despite herself. "I care about my patients. I guess I like helping." Robert nodded, understanding. Without thinking, he offered her a hug, protective, warm, reassuring. Emily rested her head against his chest briefly, feeling an unspoken trust grow between them. It was a hug that said more than words could. Comfort, safety, and the quiet beginnings of something deeper. As the rain eased, they finally stepped out, sharing an umbrella the rest of the way. Emily realized that some moments, even the simplest ones in a storm, could change everything. The days that followed the rainy night seemed to stretch and fold in Emily's mind, each moment at St. Mercy Hospital tinged with anticipation. She found herself glancing toward Robert more often, noticing the subtle way he carried himself, how he listened intently to every patient, every colleague, every word she spoke. Work had become a backdrop for something far more captivating. A quiet curiosity, a growing connection she couldn't ignore. During a brief break between rounds, Robert approached her with a small smile. "I was thinking, would you like to join me for a coffee after your shift?" he asked casually, yet there was a sincerity in his tone that made Emily's heart skip. She nodded, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. They walked together to a nearby cafe, the hum of the city outside softening the transition from hospital chaos to a more personal space. Over steaming cups of cocoa and coffee, they shared stories. Robert spoke about adjusting to life in a new country, the challenges and surprises of a hospital culture different from what he was used to. Emily shared her dreams, the little ambitions she often kept to herself, the hope that one day she could make a real difference in her patients' lives. There was laughter, the kind that comes naturally when two people feel safe with each other. And when Robert noticed her hesitating over a particularly difficult memory, he reached across the table, offering a gentle, supportive hug. It was quick, intimate without words, a gesture that made Emily realize how much trust and comfort could exist in a simple embrace. Walking back toward the hospital, Emily felt lighter, as if something had shifted inside her. Their connection was no longer just professional, it was personal, quiet, and undeniable. She knew that these small moments were weaving the beginnings of something lasting. Emily had always trusted herself to read situations clearly, but today her confidence faltered. As she walked into the staff lounge, she spotted Robert talking with another nurse, her heart tightening for reasons she couldn't fully explain. The laughter, the easy familiarity between them, stirred a pang of doubt she hadn't felt before. She told herself it was silly. Robert had been kind, professional, attentive, he couldn't possibly be interested in anyone else. Yet the seed of uncertainty had taken root. Emily busied herself with organizing supplies, trying to focus on anything but the images replaying in her mind. Meanwhile, Robert noticed her distant demeanor. He approached cautiously, unsure if he had done something to upset her. "Emily, is everything all right?" he asked, concern threading his words. She shook her head, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm fine," she said quietly, though the distance in her posture spoke otherwise. The day dragged on and the tension between them grew heavier. Finally, during a quiet moment in the corridor, Robert gently took her hand. "Emily, please." "I would never," he began, but she stepped back, shaking her head. Her chest ached with the need to trust him, yet fear held her in place. Then he did something unexpected. He opened his arms in a patient, understanding gesture, and offered her a hug. Not rushed, not pleading, just steady, sincere. Emily hesitated for a heartbeat before stepping into it, letting the warmth and calm reassurance seep through the tension. In that embrace, doubts softened, and the silent promise of trust lingered between them. As they parted, Emily realized that misunderstandings were temporary, but trust, once nurtured, could endure anything. The hospital floor was chaos in motion. Alarms beeped, monitors flashed, and every nurse and doctor moved with precision honed by experience. Emily's heart raced as she followed Robert's lead, guiding a patient through a sudden allergic reaction. The adrenaline was sharp, but amidst the flurry of orders and movement, Emily noticed something remarkable. Robert never lost his calm. "Emily, hand me the epinephrine," he instructed, his voice steady but urgent. She passed it over, matching his rhythm, their hands brushing again in a brief, electric moment that made her pulse quicken. In the chaos, there was no time for hesitation. Their teamwork was seamless, a silent communication born of mutual respect and growing trust. When the patient stabilized, the tension in the air finally eased. Emily sank into a nearby chair, her hands trembling slightly from the adrenaline. Robert came over, placing a hand on her shoulder, not in criticism but in reassurance. "You did wonderfully," he said softly, and then, something she had come to rely on, he pulled her into a warm, heartfelt hug. It wasn't a gesture of fleeting comfort. It was recognition, appreciation, and unspoken admiration all rolled into one. Emily felt the weight of the day lift slightly, the bond between them strengthened in a way words alone could not describe. As they straightened, still catching their breath, Emily realized that moments like these, working side by side under pressure, supporting each other when it mattered most, were shaping something deeper than friendship. It was trust, connection, and a quiet affection that grew stronger with each shared challenge. The evening air was soft and cool as Emily stepped into the park, the city lights flickering in the distance. She hadn't expected to feel so relaxed, so far removed from the chaos of hospital halls and patient charts. Yet here she was, walking beside Robert, the gentle rhythm of their steps falling into an easy cadence. "I thought you might like a quiet change of pace," Robert said, glancing at her with a smile that felt both playful and reassuring. Emily nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. There was something comforting about being here with him, not as doctor and nurse, not as colleagues, but simply as two people learning about each other. They strolled along the path talking about little things, favorite books, childhood memories, the simple joys that often went unnoticed in the rush of daily life. Laughter came easily, the kind that fills the empty spaces and leaves warmth lingering long after. Emily realized she was noticing the details she hadn't before, the kindness in Robert's tone, the ease in his gestures, the way he genuinely listened. At a quiet spot near a fountain, they paused. The world seemed to shrink to just the two of them. The soft gurgle of water a gentle accompaniment to their shared silence. Emily felt a nervous flutter in her chest, unsure how to express the mix of admiration and affection building inside her. Robert, sensing her hesitation, stepped closer and opened his arms in a simple, tender hug. It was slow, meaningful, and steady, a hug that said more than words could. Emily leaned into it, feeling a warmth that was deeper than comfort, a connection that was becoming impossible to ignore. As they finally pulled apart, both smiled softly, knowing that something important had begun between them, something that would only grow stronger. The hospital had quieted after a long day, the hum of machines and distant footsteps the only background to Emily's thoughts. She had been feeling it for weeks, the steady pull toward Robert, the warmth of his presence, the small moments that left her heart racing even in the busiest corridors. Tonight, though, the feeling was undeniable. Robert appeared beside her, leaning casually against the doorway of the nurse's station. His gaze softened when he saw her, and Emily felt the familiar flutter in her chest. "Emily," he began, his voice low and steady, "there's something I need to tell you." Her stomach tightened. She had sensed this moment coming, yet her heart pounded with both anticipation and fear. "What is it?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. "I can't pretend anymore," he said. I care about you. More than I should as your colleague. More than I expected. Every day I work with you, I realize how much you mean to me." Emily's breath caught, and a smile tugged at her lips despite the tension. She took a small step closer. "Robert, I feel the same," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've been trying to ignore it, but I can't. You've become important to me. More than anyone else." For a moment, words weren't enough. Robert closed the distance between them and drew her into a slow, heartfelt hug. It was the kind of embrace that held trust, warmth, and a promise of something lasting. Emily rested her head against his chest, feeling the certainty of their emotions in a way that was impossible to deny. As they pulled apart, their eyes met, soft smiles reflecting the joy and relief of mutual understanding. In that quiet hospital hallway they didn't need words, they had found their truth. The morning sun filtered gently through the hospital windows, casting a golden glow over the ward. Emily adjusted her scrubs and glanced around, a sense of peace settling over her. Life at St. Mercy Hospital would always be busy, unpredictable, and sometimes exhausting, but now it felt different. She wasn't facing it alone. Robert appeared at her side, a coffee cup in each hand and that familiar warm smile lighting up his face. "Morning," he said softly, offering one to her. Emily took it, feeling the simple joy of shared routine. No grand gestures, no dramatic confessions. Just presence, trust, and the quiet happiness of being together. As they walked the corridor, greeting colleagues and patients alike, Emily felt a subtle shift inside herself. They had weathered misunderstandings, long nights, and chaotic emergencies, yet their connection had only deepened. Their hugs had become a comfort, a silent way to say, "I'm here, always." Later, during a break in the afternoon, Robert gently took her hand and led her to a quiet corner near the hospital garden. The sun was soft, the flowers in bloom, and the world outside seemed to pause for them. Without words he opened his arms and Emily stepped into the hug, a warm, steady embrace that spoke of love, commitment, and the promise of tomorrow. Pulling back slightly, they shared a smile that needed no explanation. They had found in each other a partner, a friend, and a kind of love that was steady, nurturing, and enduring. It wasn't rushed or forced, it was real, growing naturally, and meant to last. As they walked back into the bustling hospital, hand in hand, Emily knew one thing for certain. Some beginnings were quiet, some sparks subtle, but when the connection was right, forever could start anywhere, even amidst the hum of monitors, the rush of footsteps, and the rhythm of life at St. Mercy Hospital.